talk about, Chip, because it has such a long history. And because the foundation of the list is so powerful and consistent, you're drawing so many cards, it opens up tons and tons of room for the list to tech in different ways for different matchups. So even though this is a Mew mirror, the players have built the decks in completely different ways, accounting for different ideas.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what will happen here. Ooh, a couple of Genesects in the prizes for Zander, a double turbo for each player, a Roxanne and a Judge being in the prize as well for Zander, and then we've got triple Quick Ball in the prizes for Grant.
Wow, so Zander not going to have access to Genesects because they're in the prizes, and Grant maybe not having access because the Quick Balls just aren't going to be there to get him off of the ground.
Yeah, I mean, if you can open up with a strong turn of Battle VIP passes, it won't matter too much. Quick Ball can be really nice to just discard useless cards, though, from your hand so that you can draw more with Fusion Strike system as the game goes on. So all things we'll have to keep in mind as this game ends up progressing. We'll see what happens here in this high-octane mirror match.
Yep, so everything is set up and ready to go. The players are just waiting for the go-ahead from the judge so they can kick things off.
I think a big part of this matchup is going to be Path to the Peak. Both players are utilizing Path, but they also have their own counter stadiums. They also have their own lost vacuums, so they've got ways to get rid of those paths. And of course, that Forest Sealstone does work. If Path to the Peak is in play, you can still use that Star Alchemy V-Star power.
And now play is underway. Both players starting Mew V in the active, and Grant Hayes does indeed find that Battle VIP pass, Chip.
Yep, does find the VIP pass, and it seems like he's going to take a moment to check some prize cards here, and right away eyeing up how many Power Tablet does he have. That is a super important card in the matchup, because if you can reach for a one-hit knockout, that would be really, really good. But it's difficult to do, and you can't do it if you don't have access to all of your pieces.
A lot of players, especially in the Mew, with the Mew deck, they'll just use the Power Tablets to empty cards out of the hand, set up for Genesect. But in this matchup where you need to save them for a specific turn, looking for a specific knockout, that is also something that you do not have access to. So with the Power Tablets needing to be saved in the hand, with the Quick Balls all in the prize cards, Grant is going to have a pretty difficult time thinning down the hand to actually make use of Fusion Strike system.
Something interesting as well I just noticed as Grant was kind of fanning through the deck, he does play a Leafy Camo Poncho. So it's a tool card that if you put it onto one of your, I think it's just Pokemon V, or it might have to be a VMAX or a V-Star. Yeah, it is a VMAX or a V-Star Pokemon.
Okay.
You can prevent all effects of supporters done to that Pokemon, which means your opponent can't use boss's orders.
Oh, that's so cheeky.
So you could find yourself, you could find yourself in a situation where you're like Psychic Leaping a Mew VMAX out of play while you have a benched Mew VMAX with a Leafy Camo Poncho on it. So your opponent can't win the game by going boss KO or something like that.
So Grant does find the Double Turbo Energy attachment, draws with Fusion Strike system, now has the Forest Seal Stone attached to a Genesect V.
Yep, could just go for the Star Alchemy this turn, try to get another VIP pass to fully get set up.
And it's difficult, right? Because this is the Starbirth conundrum. Do I use it just to complete my setup, or do I try to save it for way late in the game when I'm missing one key card? Sets up the Lost City, another Genesect V being put onto the bench, and grabs that Battle VIP pass. We can find the final piece here. Both players also on Oricorio, manipulating the math a little bit as well to deny some prize cards.
Grant is debating the Aerodactyl here. I think he's going to think better of it, but he did pull it to the front of the deck for just a moment there.
The Aerodactyl, very, very cute indeed. You've got the setup, you've got Lost City in play. It's a huge consideration to say, do I want to just Ancient Star? Do I want to shut down my opponent entirely? You can't really evaluate what your position is in the matchup from just the first turn, because even though it looks like Grant completely popped off, we know that Zander is going to respond in kind.
Yep, Zander's going to try to get set up here. He's going to get the bad news off of this VIP pass that he has indeed prized 2 Genesects. He's only going to have access to 1 more in the deck, as I do believe 1 is in the hand here. So he'll have 2 in play, can still draw a decent amount of cards, but as you can see from Grant's side of the field, you usually want to have at least 3 down so that you can just get through the deck as effectively as possible.
And when you see just the 2 Genesects being set up here, it gives a very heavy signal to Grant, right? Like, oh, my opponent obviously had an opportunity to get more Genesects, but didn't. Most likely they're in the prizes, and that means that Grant doesn't feel pressured to extend with a Path to the Peak, doesn't feel pressured to extend with the Aerodactyl, can focus on a much more aggressive game plan, because once you start removing those Fusion Strike Pokemon from play, that's even less cards that Zander can draw with the Fusion Strike system.
Yep, just wanting to get through a few more differences here in the lists.
Yep.
So if you want to get a one-hit knockout on a Mew VMAX, it requires you to play 5 damage modifiers in one turn. So you have to either play 4 power tablets plus attach a choice belt and then swing for 340. That is assuming your opponent has Oricorio in play. If they don't have Oricorio in play, you actually only need 4 damage modifiers in a turn to get the knockout. So I'm a little surprised, honestly, that Grant didn't at least get the Oricorio down just in case that was an option for Zander moving forward, because that's the best way for Zander to try to respond to Grant taking a knockout next turn. But yeah, so there's a few considerations here. Grant actually does not play Choice Belt, so his only way to do that would be to Silene and get back a Power Tablet and use it once again to play effectively 5 Power Tablets in a turn, whereas Zander does play a copy of Choice Belt. So with that being a factor, he could reach for a one-hit knockout potentially onto a Mew VMAX.
So this is essentially going to be the battle of Grant Hayes with all the card draw with the Genesects, and Zander adopting a much more defensive stance with fewer Genesects, multiple Mews, and an Oricorio.
Yeah, and I think Zander's maybe forced into the Oricorio line. I think you wouldn't want the Mew V, the third Mew V in play. Potentially you might just want to go with another Genesect here. But yeah, has to just grab those 2 cards because he doesn't have access to the 2 Genesects in the prizes.
And when you only have 2 Genesect in play, even though each one is going to fill your hand back up, it becomes harder to dig very, very deeply in the list for specific cards. And this means that Zander wants to get an early lead, a big enough early lead, that if you happen to whiff on one key turn, it doesn't completely obliterate your tempo that you've generated.
So Zander does have, he's got a lot of stadiums in hand. He discards 2 off the Ultra Ball there. He's got two more in hand. It looks like another Lost City and a Path to the Peak. I think he's going to want to end this turn by putting down Path to the Peak.
Yes, we've got
Try to slow Grant down, at least force Grant to use the Forest Seal Stone now, or could maybe go for the Vacuum, getting rid of the Forest Seal Stone, and then put Path in play. That's exactly what he's going to do.
Oh, beautiful. Forest Seal Stone off the table, Path to the Peak being used, and this is what Zander is, this is his best option. He gets to use his Genesect V to draw a bunch of cards, puts down the Path to turn off Grant Hayes' Fusion Strike systems for the turn, and you're just saying, okay, what do you have in hand? Can you actually work your way out of this? We see that Grant does have a couple Vacuums in the hand, however, can get rid of this Path to the Peak and open the floodgates once more.
So he will have the response. He does discard, or Lost Zone, I should say, that Silene, so not going to have that table, that option on the table to reach for the big one-hit knockout on the VMAX.
And the second Vacuum finds the Forest Seal Stone from Zander.
Does have the big charm, so that's going to be Grant's way to try to deny a potential one-hit knockout without Oricorio. Makes it really difficult. I mean, obviously, I'm talking about this play a lot, but it's tough to do regardless, but sometimes it's the best thing for you to go for in this mirror match.
It's difficult, right? You extend with a lot of cards, a lot of resources, trying to take down a Mew VMAX, and then they just Psychic Leap. If they have the other VMAX, and they're still keeping a lot of aggression, a lot of power in play. And Grant is just setting up this other Mew V that's on the bench. Double Turbo Energy and the Big Charm attached. Ultra Ball finds Mew VMAX, and Grant gets the evolution now.
Yep, we'll start to see that first attack come out. Big Charm will be boosting that HP as well from the Mew, so that if the Big Charm didn't come down, Zander would just need 3 power tablets for turn because he's already got Choice Belt on the Mew. So he would be able to respond to this VMAX, but with the Big Charm, it will force that 5th modifier if he wants to find the knockout.
With the Path to the Peak and the Lost Vacuum, Zander was really trying to put up a big wall to slow down Grant in this matchup, but it just didn't come through. And now Grant is about to take some prizes, about to jump out ahead in this match, plays the Judge as well, similar to Marnie, but both players just shuffle their entire hand into the deck and then draw 4.
Yep, and each of these players only having a few cards to work with. Grant is hoping this will limit Zander's options to respond. Grant is definitely in the driver's seat of this game, at least for now. He's going to be the first person taking a 2-prize KO. And a common strategy in this mirror match is for the person who's going first to just take a knockout on a 2-prizer, take a knockout on a 2-prizer, and then take a third knockout on a third 2-prizer. And the game is over in 4 turns, effectively. That's going to be Grant's main strategy as we see that leafy camo poncho coming into play.
Yeah, just thinning the hand down. From this point, Grant, all he needs to do is get this Mew VMAX into the active, take a knockout, maybe even set up a path to the peak this turn to make it so Zander can't use the Fusion Strike system, but ends up just taking the knockout.
I think he was looking for the path and didn't quite get there.
Yeah, so overall, the entire knockdown isn't completely off the table, but still, Zander does respond. Double Turbo Energy, Choice Belt, Cram-O-Matic.
And this is a spot where I think you would love to quick ball for Genesect, but once again, Zander, with 2 in the prizes, just has to get out a Mew. And I think that's going to send off alarm bells for Grant that, oh yeah, there's no Genesect available to my opponent.
Mm-hmm. And with the Genesect off the table, even if you don't have path to turn off those powerful abilities, you don't feel so bad. Grant, especially after taking the first 2 prizes, having 2 Mew VMAX in play is feeling completely comfortable from here. A couple Ultra Balls now in the hand. There's a Power Tablet.
Yep.
Slowly but surely, Zander is working on the return knockout.
Power Tablet, Cram-O-Matic as well. Looks like Xander's going to play it a little bit more conservatively. Knows that his Mew VMAX isn't likely to go down, so just use boss's orders this turn, take out the Mew, and depending on what your opponent does, if they are unable to find a boss, gusting card, or cross switchers, anything like that, maybe you can come away with a Mew that sticks around for a turn, and then you can try to capitalize by, you being the one who's initiating that 2-2-2 prize trade.
All you have to do is deny your opponent for 1 turn. Ultra Ball discards an Ultra Ball, and the other Cram-O-Matic finds the Mew VMAX.
Yeah, it's pretty funny how this game has worked out because we've seen Zander utilize 3 Cram-O-Matics, but none of them have been played. One's been, we've seen them quick balled away, ultra balled away, and even lost vacuumed away. So no Cram-O-Matics actually being utilized, no coins flipped just yet for Zander.
Fortunately, these 2 Genesect are doing a lot of heavy lifting. You love to see it. Staying in this game, staying in the pocket, Forest Steel Stone number 2 being found and attached. So we'll see if Zander wants to just use this right now, use that Star Alchemy, or is just going to save it.
Yeah.
I think that if the Lost Vacuum does come through on this other Forest Steel Stone, it might just be a fantastic gambit from Zander to draw out that resource and then finally have a higher chance of sticking a stadium.
Yeah, I think Zander holding off on using the Sky Seal Stone is indicative of Grant having already utilized 2 Lost Vacuums. He's kind of thinking that, there's a chance Grant plays more, but it's pretty unlikely. People have played. I remember seeing lists whenever this combo kind of first made itself known. People were playing 4 Path to the Peak and 4 of the Lost Vacuums, right? But yeah, it's kind of cooled down just a little bit. Grant is only on 2 copies of the card.
And now Grant is cooking, just drawing tons of cards, doing Mew VMAX things, and eyeballs the Oricorio, it looks like. Sees that this is going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight. He was comfortable at first saying, okay, well, with only 2 Genesect on Zander's side, I should be able to just run away with this one. But Zander being able to keep up with that early knockout is very important. But pulls the Aerodactyl instead, just to discard it with the Ultra Ball, thinning down the deck even further.
Yeah, really smart thinning. You don't want Aerodactyl at this point, so pull it out of the deck with Quick Ball, and then discard it with Ultra Ball. So you get that card out of the deck. You're not going to draw into it off a Fusion Strike system, and you can still get your Oricorio out that you really wanted.
And so now with both players with Oricorio in play, you talked about it earlier, Chip, this means that Zander is just a little bit more favored because of running the Choice Belt.
Yeah, this does make it so that this active Mew VMAX cannot be knocked out, even if you play all of your damage modifiers at once. Zander,
because of the Big Charm, also very important.
Big Charm plus the Oricorio, right? Yeah, makes it so that can't happen.
So 2 Power Tablets being expended just to open up space in the hand for the Genesect V. Grant recognizes that even if I expend all my resources, I can't take down this Mew VMAX through the Oricorio, so I might as well just use the Power Tablet now, just to get some more resources. There's even another Power Tablet in the hand if he wants to dig even deeper.
Also has Rotom Phone. This is a card that we've seen a lot of players phase out of their Mew VMAX decks, but Grant is choosing to hang on to it. It does make a little bit more sense when you're playing non-Fusion Strike Pokemon like Aerodactyl, right? Because in games that you put it in play, you're going to see less cards. So utilizing the Rotom Phone can allow you to kind of manipulate that top deck.
Yep, you just pick a card from the top 7, put it on top after you shuffle, and then you just use Fusion Strike system to draw it right into the hand. It's a great way to find exactly what you're looking for, or at least have a better shot of doing so. And we're kind of winding into a weird stalemate, right, Chip, where there's the Path of the Peak, there's another judge.
So Grant is going to miss the KO here, which is really big and really solid for Zander. It's going to give him a chance to try to fight back in this one. He can be the one to initiate that trade of the 2/2/2 prize Pokemon. But off of this Judge plus Path, he's going to need to find an out. Thankfully, though, he does have the Forest Seal Stone already available.
Both players on 2 copies of Boss's Orders. These are going to be incredibly clutch for fishing up those extra prize cards by taking down a Genesect V. Grant Hayes, reminder, down 2 power tablets, so it does become a little bit harder to find other important knockouts. But with both players with double Mu VMAX in play, it's just going to be a slugfest from this point.
Yeah, we're doing a little bit of math here, so I think with a couple of power tablets being played, he's doing 250 and then minus 20 from the Oricorio, so should be at 230 damage on this VMAX, I believe.
Yeah. So 250, compensating for the double turbo energy, etc.
Yeah, so it should be down to 230, I believe. So yeah, that's what they've got, and looks like Zander's got a cross switcher in hand. Remember, he does have access to the Forest Seal Stone, which even though Path to the Peak is in play, you can use that ability because Genesect V does not have that ability. It just can't use it. Really key with the wording.
Very important ruling there for the way that those cards are worded. And now a Judge comes out from Zander. We're going to shuffle those cards right back in and draw a little bit more. The Judges are very helpful for Zander. Again, only having access to 2 Genesect, just drawing some cards, seeing what you can see, finding that key missing piece, right? And Zander also has access to that Star Alchemy from the Forest Seal Stone, can find that final card if need be.
Yeah, this could be indicating that we'll be seeing a Psychic Leap this turn from Zander, potentially putting this Mew back in, still dealing a bit of damage. Star Alchemy will be utilized, though, on the Forest Seal Stone. Actually, do need to note, cannot attack with this active Mew right now because it did use Technoblast last turn, so he still needs to find a way to switch it to the bench as well.
So uses Star Alchemy to find the Lost City. This bumps Path to the Peak, turns on the Fusion Strike system. This is what Zander was looking for, just a way to bump this path. And especially after the Judge. Both players are just running Judge. They're shuffling cards into their deck, but they both have so much card draw. The disruption aspect doesn't really matter. It's more for your own benefit of just having a chance at seeing 2 or 3 different cards from your current hand.
Kind of some awkward stuff here in Zander's hand. He doesn't really want to play the Power Tablet just yet. He doesn't really want to play the Ultra Ball and discard some of these good cards. He can't play 1 Cross Switcher by itself, so Genesect is just going to draw 2 cards. He still needs either a switch or a double turbo energy, and he does find double turbo. That's really good.
Beautiful. Once we get the double turbo attached, this is going to be able to set up the other Mew VMAX, but we just need one more way to get this this Mew V out of the active, this Mew VMAX, pardon me.
Yeah, can just retreat with that free retreat. Super strong on that card. So he'll be able to go into this benched
I
Mew
always forget about that. Yeah. Like Mew VMAX, it has so much going for it, and then
they
written
give it free
in the fine
retreat
print,
too,
it's like, also it has free retreat.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that too.
Very strong card without a doubt. Zander is considering a few other things here before he proceeds with this turn. He does still have access to 1 more Genesect, 1 more Fusion Strike system.
Yeah, so they're just reminding him that the Technoblast was used.
Yeah, so I think Zander did actually announce his attack. Yeah, I think if I heard right, Zander was announcing his attack. Or maybe he was saying, I Technoblast, so I can't attack. I think, I don't know, they're figuring it out.
I couldn't quite hear who was saying what, but I think I did hear the words Technoblast. So it is out in the open. You know, this Mew VMAX is kind of stranded. This happened a long time ago, I remember, when Mew VMAX kind of hit the scene with the Technoblast, preventing the attack.
Yeah, it sounds like he was saying, I used Technoblast. Like, he was like talking out loud, thinking out loud what he couldn't do. So play is going to continue here. He has not entered the attack phase of the game just yet. He's playing Ultra Ball. Will lose a Power Tablet here.
Yeah, just getting rid of the Judge and fails it. Just thinning the hand down for the second Fusion Strike system. Zander had that double turbo in the hand. And just wants to draw, look for a few more pieces here. How many choice belts do we have on this side? Just the one. Yeah. So again, the one-hit knockout is kind of not a thing anyway.
That's not
just
on the
because
table.
Of the Oricorio, and now the loss of a Power Tablet. This is just going to be forcing your opponent to Psychic Leap or retreat, and then just trying to find a way to pull up those prize cards later on. Grant with the leafy camo poncho
Yeah.
is a little bit more favored as this game goes longer and longer because it restricts Xander's options for finding those remaining prize cards.
Yeah, Zander won't be able to use boss's orders to bring up this Mew VMAX, but Leafy Camo Poncho does specify supporter cards, so Zander could still bring it up and KO it by using crossed switchers in order to bring it to the active.
Very cheeky indeed. But yep, just sprinkles a little bit of damage there and has to pass the turn back over to Grant, who's just immediately off to the races with 3 Genesects now available. Isn't locked out. There's no more path to the peak. Can just draw a bunch of cards. You see that delicious damaged Mew VMAX on the bench, and it's just a matter of reaching out to take those prizes.
Yeah, looking through the deck, it looks like we're just failing the Ultra Ball. Of course, he did use Technoblast last turn, so he'll need to retreat this active, but this is the situation where Leafy Camo Poncho can be kind of nice.
Yeah, you have the damaged Mew VMAX that you know is protected, at the very least from boss. Zander hasn't revealed the cross switchers just yet.
Yeah.
So overall, it's a really great spot to be in. Grant also does still have access to Forest Sealstone. Wait, no, actually he's only running 1 copy. My mistake. So now since that was vacuumed,
Yeah.
Grant isn't going to be able to find that final card, but hopefully the presence of a 3rd Genesect on the bench is going to do it for him.
Grant wanting to check his own resources here. I think if he can just play a Gusting card and take 2 prizes this turn, he'll be in a pretty good spot. The problem is with Oricorio in play, he can't really boss KO like Genesect or anything like that because it deals reduced damage. I think he would still obviously be able to KO the Mew VMAX that's got a bunch of damage on it, so that is an option. Zander does not have the Leafy Camo Poncho on his side.
Yeah,
I do think I see that boss in hand.
The double reduction is so important here. The double turbo energy and the Oricorio. Grant had already used a couple power tablets earlier just to make room in his hand to draw more cards.
Yeah.
So it's just going to be boss's order on this damaged Mew VMAX. We can go into the retreat, and that should be enough, right? Even with the reduction, the heavy damage that was put on this much earlier. And now we get to clean up, and Grant is going to leap out ahead by taking big 3-prize knockout as soon as everything else is sequenced. Palpad puts 2 bosses' orders back into the deck. You can see it's so thin here, Chip. Grant is already setting up to claim that final prize card.
It's a pretty clear path for Grant to close this one out. Boss's orders a Genesect plus play a power tablet in order to get the KO. So Zander's Oricorio is going to be very important here. Actually, excuse me, Boss's orders could just bring up Oricorio. Let's not forget that as well.
Oh, yeah,
so
yeah.
Doesn't even have to bring up a Genesect, doesn't need a power tablet, just needs a boss next turn. So that's why Grant's putting back just those 2 cards, and I think it may come down to Roxanne here for Zander. Playing Roxanne and seeing exactly how it plays out.
Yeah, Roxanne path. Try to lock Grant out of the game. If he is out of options to remove that path to the peak, he only draws 1 card per turn, won't be able to make it happen. Uses another power tablet, I believe, there, or maybe discarded it. Just draws more cards off the Fusion Strike system. Even after shuffling those boss's orders, he's making tons of room in hand and drawing.
Yeah, I think we're looking at a Rotom phone right now, so he'll just place that boss's orders on the top of the deck.
This is very important as well. It means that if there is, something to disrupt your hand, you maybe just top deck on the next turn. This forces Zander now. I think after seeing the Palpad and then the Rotom phone, you kind of know that boss is coming. This is signaling to Zander you have to have some sort of judge or disruption here. Capping off the turn with path to the peak as well, really restricting Zander's options to respond to this massive KO. Grant Hayes going all the way down to only 1 prize card remaining. 28 minutes left on the clock here. We're still in the first game, and Zander must respond under path.
Yeah, Zander absolutely needs to respond here. I think he's got the vacuum, it looks like, so we can see him get rid of that path to the peak. I think that his win condition at this spot revolves around Roxanne plus put path to the peak in play, plus cross switcher, take 2 prizes or 3 prizes potentially this turn, so that next turn you can try to close the game out by KOing either Oricorio or another Genesect, whatever Zander thinks he can get through as a KO this turn.
Yeah, then it's that high noon showdown with 1 prize card remaining on both players, and it's just whoever can take the next one will win.
Yep.
Big Parasol comes through on the Genesect just to open up space in the hand. There's the Lost Vacuum, getting rid of that path to the peak.
And it looks like Roxanne will be the move. Zander does have 1 cross switcher in hand, but now it is going back into the deck. There was 1 cross switcher prized. So, I mean, I think that's just got to be his way to win this game. It's got to revolve around gusting here.
Yep, so 6 cards, very important. We're going to see a little bit more, hopefully, off the Genesect V now with that Path to the Peak missing. Zander's playing towards his out. This is a very close first game, all things considered, especially with the way the Oricorios and the big charms, etc., have all been messing with the math here. Power Tablet, double cross switcher.
Yeah, that's huge. That can bring up that Mew VMAX on the bench. That leafy camo poncho can't hide it from the switchers. Does bring it into the active, and Zander can pretty freely just go into this other Mew VMAX, has that free retreat option available, and can even thin one more card out of this hand with Quick Ball to draw more off of the next Fusion Strike system.
Quick Ball and Quick Ball. The remaining cards in hand, I believe, was a Power Tablet and an Escape Rope?
Yeah.
No, that's not right. Is it? No, there is one Escape Rope in the hand. I think that is finally there. Just to help out with the retreats, getting around that Technoblast is so important.
And all Grant Hayes needs is a boss's orders. And I think the last thing Zander Bennett wants to find here is Path to the Peak. I think he has only played one this game, if I'm remembering right. So if he can find Path here and really limit Grant's draw, there's a chance he could win this one.
It is certainly possible, Chip. Everything that Zander needs to do this turn has already coming to transpire. And it's just a matter of finding the final piece to disrupt Grant to keep him from taking that final prize. Probably just a little clarification here with the leafy camo poncho and the cross switchers.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Very cool.
Having a little bit of a discussion with the judge. Not totally sure what is going on, but looks like play is good to continue. Yep, 3 cards, or just, just 3 cards here because there is not 5 bench Fusion Strike Pokemon, and he does find the path.
The path to the peak is found.
Massive.
Not even going to use the other Fusion Strike system. No way to thin the hand down further. Nope. Get the lockdown with the path. Brings up the Mew VMAX.
And this is going to take the knockout, and Grant Hayes is now hoping for a top deck. I think his 2 cards in hand are Battle VIP Pass and Roxanne. And he draws the boss off
the top.
What a draw, bringing up Oricorio to close out the game.
Once again, the prophecy. Roxanne isn't real. Just draw it.
Roxanne and Path, no problem for you, Grant Hayes. Boss's orders, exactly what was needed to close that one out. What a finish.
Somebody has to calculate. I'm not sure exactly how. The deck was looking pretty thin, but still it was like 2 out of whatever.
Yeah.
Still very important for it to happen at that particular moment. With the Path to the Peak in play, there was no way to remove that. The boss had to be drawn there, and Grant Hayes is able to barely scoot by in such a close game number 1.
Yeah, there was a few potential outs, or mixed outs, I guess you could say, for Grant. Like if he draws Cramomatic, he has a chance to flip heads, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, it's not as lucky as it seems, but it definitely was exactly what he needed, and it makes it a little bit easier when you just draw the 1 card instead of, if you draw a Stadium, you can bump the Stadium, and then now you draw a few cards with Fusion Strike System. Maybe you hit that Cramomatic, maybe you hit that heads, but yeah, Grant Hayes finding a way to close it out.
And the players now see a lot more of what they're working with in this matchup, right? And when you go into the mirror match, you're expecting a general strategy, but now they can adapt around the big charm. They're adapting around the Forest Seal Stones. How many Lost Vacuums are you on? How many Paths to the Peak are you on? What other stadiums are you running on top of that? So we got to see a very, very close game 1, Chip, and now it's going to be a battle of who can adapt the most here as we head into game number 2.
Yeah, game number 2, Zander will undoubtedly be choosing to go first in this spot, so he's going to be the one at the advantage. He'll try to be able to, or be the one trying to pull off the same plays that his opponent was going for in the last game. He's got a pretty good looking hand to start things off, and it looks like he'll get even more to work with.
Mulligans, beautiful.
Grant is unable to find a basic here.
And when it comes to Mew, you're going to be drawing a lot of cards regardless. Ironically, maybe even drawing cards early makes it harder to clear the way for Genesect V. As we see some prizes coming out, the Power Tablets coming in. It's actually not as detrimental, but finds 2 Genesect V in the prizes.
Once again,
Zander had to fight tooth and nail with just 1 and 2 Genesect at a time in game number 1. Is going to have to make it happen once more. Starts with the Genesect V in the active as well.
And the thing that really kept Zander around in that game and gave him a chance to close it out was the Roxanne, and that is now something that is in the prize cards.
So that option is not going to be available. Essentially, Zander, I think to stay in this best of 3 is going to have to come roaring out of the gates here and get a massive advantage over Grant. Can't rely on that late game disruption, especially with the lack of Genesect V. You can't dig for those missing cards. You just have to get a very basic setup and start swinging immediately.
Yeah, and Zander is probably thinking to himself, did I seriously prize 2 Genesect again? Like 2 games in a row? Are we serious here?
Yeah, I'm just going to jot that down.
Yeah, take some notes on that.
And so Genesect and Mew V being eyeballed, maybe an early Oricorio grabbed. You can wait on that. You can wait on that. Wait for the Mew V Max to come, then get the Oricorio set up to kind of head that off at the pass. You don't want to just dangle that out in front of the opponent when you're first trying to complete your setup.
You're going to check the rest of the prize cards. You always want to be looking at, okay, how many double turbo energies do I have? How many power tablets do I have? Which, by the way, is also something Zander prized a couple copies of. 2 power tablets in the prizes for him.
And after that, it is just going to be both players also having to just play clean. They're going to be fencing back and forth, fighting over the damage, fighting over who has their path in play versus not. But Zander is the one that needs to perform here, right? When you're down 1 game, you are under a little bit more pressure to maybe play a little bit more aggressively, play a little bit more audaciously with some of your resources, and force your opponent's hand quality to be that much higher to keep up with your tempo.
Does grab, it looks like Forest Sealstone off of the off of the Cremomatic Heads flip. I wonder if there's ever a strategy in this mirror match to try to be the one to put a pass to the peak and play turn 1, right? Where Zander could dig for that specifically. We saw Grant try to go for it in game 1. Obviously, it didn't quite work out, but...
And now with the Forest Sealstone, getting it early like this, especially off of Cremomatic Heads, does show that Zander is thinking about that with the 2 Mew V, maybe with the second Fusion Strike system, if you're able to make that work.
So, yeah, I'm kind of interested about the decision to...
It's very difficult,
I'm not exactly sure what he chose to take off the Cremomatic, but I got to think VIP Pass, even though you're not getting a bunch of Genesects out, it at least lets you draw more cards, right? And this deck is all about just getting through the 60 cards you have built, right? Trying to draw through the deck as much as possible. That's really what this Mew VMAX archetype is all about, and Zander kind of limited himself. He only drew 1 card off a Fusion Strike system on this turn.
And I've been saying, Chip, that he has to be, you know, maybe a bit more aggressive in this match, but takes a very passive opening turn. Forest Sealstone, Genesect V now, and Grant knows a little bit more about how this matchup is really going to go. Could maybe hit an early Lost Vacuum to deny that Forest Sealstone. Maybe is signaled that Zander has a bit of an awkward hand. Completes the setup, double turbo, goes for the judge as well.
Yeah, going for the judge, slapping down the Forest Sealstone, so he'll have options off of whatever he draws from these 4 cards. And even though Zander only had 4 cards in hand, I mean, you just played that Forest Sealstone. I don't know. I mean, if that's what you're choosing to get off of Cremomatic, maybe you've got a pretty good hand. Let me disrupt that.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, is, of course, if you Forest Sealstone, get the path to the peak and just slam it down, it doesn't deny Grant his Forest Sealstone if it just so happens to be in the opening hand. And Zander wouldn't have really anything to do once the turn came back to him anyway. The hand was like, you know, Lost City, very clunky. So if the hand quality was a little bit better, I certainly would have expected that early path play a little bit more. And if Grant doesn't pop off here as well, then the ball goes back over into Zander's court, and we could see that path come through indeed. So after the judge disruption, I think that Grant is more willing to set up that path right now as well.
Yeah, and he does find the VIP pass as well off of the judge and will opt to grab out Oricorio and the Mew. And I expect we'll see him retreat into the Oricorio this turn, try to make it as difficult as possible for Zander to pull off the 2 prize knockout here.
Yeah, by forcing the 1 prize like that, it really messes with the mapping. It was a little bit fortunate for both players to even take down a Mew VMAX, all things considered, the way that they did. And if you just are able to promote that Oricorio, it forces your opponent into a very clunky 7 prize game.
Rotom Phone will put 1 card on the top now. And
that's actually been incredibly clutch. I'm surprised that Mew players kind of rotated off of it. It's so strong with the early Genesects as well, just to weave your foundation and setup for your turns a lot better.
He's got that Aerodactyl V in hand, and he's actually going to choose to bench it just to draw 1 additional card here.
is looking for something specific. I'd imagine it might be VMAX or
Maybe
Path to the Peak here.
Doesn't get it, though, and it looks like it will just be the retreat and pass. Exactly what I was saying, though. Wants to go into the Oricorio and try to force Zander to find a really good combo of cards in order to get the knockout.
All right, so
in order to get that gusting 2-prize KO.
And then the third MUV does hit the bench, going to empty the hand entirely with the Ultra Ball to find the VMAX, and then evolve there. Has the Choice Belt and the double turbo energy, and now we can draw up to 5 with the Fusion Strike system. And 5 cards here is going to be so key. Finds a big Parasol, Collapse Stadium, Battle VIP Pass. Nothing too great in the hand, unfortunately.
Yeah, with one cross switcher, he can use Forest Sealstone to go get the other cross switcher, so that could be a consideration, but there's nothing he can immediately really burn from this hand just besides this one big Parasol.
Attach the big Parasol, maybe just expend a power tablet here. If we do go for the cross switcher play, do you think that Zander would want to maybe take down a Genesect or maybe just take down this MUV that has the double turbo on it?
Yeah, I think going after the double turbo makes sense. There could also be an argument to chase down the Forest Sealstone, however. I think Grant is probably pretty happy to see that Collapse Stadium come down, as it allows him to just clear that Aerodactyl out of play, get that guy out of here. And yeah, Zander does need to play a power tablet most likely this turn anyway. So he does put it down.
Draws up to 5 now. Has a Judge, can see a little bit more. Couple vacuums as well, and pulls the trigger on the Forest Seal Stone. Can use that Star Alchemy to search the deck for 1 card and add it to the hand.
And doesn't even have to get cross switcher here. He can just go for Escape Rope and take a guaranteed 2-prize knockout.
Very, very good here. Yeah, the Escape Rope comes through, and Grant is going to promote the other Genesect that doesn't have the Forest Seal Stone on it, and Zander is more than happy to oblige. 1 power tablet was already expended, so that covers the Oricorio.
Zander does have Lost Vacuum in hand. He's actually got 2 Lost Vacuum in hand, so he could take this opportunity to Lost Vacuum away the Forest Seal Stone over on Grant's side.
Oh,
he's gonna hold
but
off,
actually
though.
just holds off. Probably just wants to save that for Path to the Peak down the road.
Which makes sense.
Overall, we see a lot of options for these players, right? There's a lot of potential decisions and branching paths, and Zander's taking the most respectful route, right? Saying, I'm not going to use the Lost Vacuum to try to restrict my opponent or bully myself into a better position. I want to use it to work myself out of a bad spot down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. So now with just 4 cards apiece for these players, of course, no option for Zander to put down a Path to the Peak this turn or dig for it in any means because he's already played the Collapsed for turn here.
Yep, so Zander is now the one in the driver's seat after taking those first 2 prizes. Grant Hayes has to respond. It's just a Collapsed Stadium, so even though the bench is restricted, even though there's only a few Fusion Strike Pokemon in play, there is still a Genesect and a Forest Steel Stone, and that could be everything that Grant needs to respond back against Zander. There's no Oricorio on his side. That means that Grant just has to get the VMAX, and hopefully a few power tablets should be able to respond nicely.
Debating here between Genesect and a VMAX. It looks like the VMAX will be the grab, wants to guarantee at least being able to do some damage this turn, which seems pretty solid.
And once again, Grant taking a very just chill option, not trying to overextend with the Genesect, taking something that's a little bit more guaranteed, a bit more even-keeled. Here's Fusion Strike system for draw back up to 4 cards, finds the big Charm. Going to protect the MUV on the bench. After seeing that Escape Rope, Zander still has access to the cross switchers, finds Path to the Peak as well to bump that Collapse Stadium. And then the Judge also comes through, shuffling the hands into the decks. Both players draw 4 cards. With the Path to the Peak now entering play, Grant maybe could find another Genesect naturally, but wouldn't be able to use it. But this is perfectly acceptable. You've got your VMAX ready to go. You've got your big Charm attached. You managed to use your Forest Seal Stone. Or if you need to, I should say, to really find that missing card for what Grant has planned for this turn.
You see the cut of the deck. Both players now getting 4 cards to work with.
I think that was another Judge in the hand, another Path to the Peak, got Quick Ball.
Yeah, this will at least grab the Genesect out, even though you can't use it here. You want to hold off until next turn. It would feel a little silly to use your Forest Sealstone now when you can't really advance the turn too much from this point.
But
I
just
suppose an escape rope could be decent. If you go grab escape rope, if you have a power tablet, you could try to take a KO. Or no, there's no Oricorio even in play, but yeah, it will just be the attack into the VMAX.
yep, just putting some damage down. That could just be something we can scoop up later, get some more prize cards. Zander responds by using a power tablet to thin down the hand and then go for a judge by putting the power tablet in play. Maybe we get a little bit more threat potential in this turn, but with the Oricorio, big charm on the bench Mew V, it could just be a very a mirrored response. Just attacking into this Mew VMAX, putting some damage on it, and then trying to clean it up with the cross switcher later.
But Zander actually misses the attack here. This active Mew VMAX cannot attack because it used Technoblast in that last turn. There's a double turbo energy on the benched Mew V, but there's no Mew VMAX. Off these 4 cards from the judge, he doesn't find anything to advance this hand. I think he's going to retreat and pass here. That is not good.
Misses out on an enormous window of opportunity to keep up in the the tempo of this game. Getting the damage back onto Grant's Mew VMAX would be massive in order to get some prizes down the road. Because that Forest Sealstone was used earlier, we didn't have it now to get that final card to get out of a really bad situation. And Grant now, with the attacker already set up, has a couple Genesexes as well, and has the path to the peak that maybe he can clear if he ever feels the need to.
Yeah, all he really needs here is Mew VMAX because there's no Oricorio in play for Zander, so he can just Technoblast for the knockout or use Cross Fusion Strike to copy the Technoblast at least. So Ultra Ball will grab this VMAX here, and all he has to do is just retreat and attack, and now he's in the situation where he's just able to freely move between these 2 Mew VMAXs.
And just keep attacking into Zander without the, the Mew VMAX. The second one to keep retreating, you're forcing a lot of awkward psychic leaps. The double turbos become harder to find, especially under the influence of Path to the Peak. Zander can't really draw out of these bad outs. It was so unfortunate earlier where there was the lost vacuums in the hand. They all got shuffled back in. Maybe Zander can get lucky, pull a miracle like Grant did in game number 1, top deck that lost vacuum or some other answer card to bump Path to the Peak and open up these 3 Genesects that he has on the bench to draw a lot of cards from here.
So Grant, I think having just Roxanne plus 1 other card in the hand, I think he was debating, is it worth it to use the Forest Seal Stone now? Do I want to use Vacuum and draw through my deck a little bit? And it looks like that will be the choice.
Forest Seal Stone into Vacuum to Lost Zone the Path to the Peak. Grant getting rid of his own stadium just to get a little bit more card draw this turn. Because you were able to lock your opponent out for 1 turn and just get ahead, that's all you needed the Path to the Peak to do. And now that it's done its job, Grant is going to draw more cards to try to solidify this lead.
Yeah, I almost wonder if Grant could have just retreated and attacked here. I mean, he's got everything he needs, and obviously Zander doesn't have much. By using Lost Vacuum and getting rid of this Path to the Peak, you do open things up for Zander just a little bit, unless you're able to find able to put another Path to the Peak in play.
Yeah, and plus you use the Forest Seal Stone to make that play happen as well. So that's another important piece that can work you out of a tight spot that now Grant does not have access to. Could be a bit of an overextension to just knock your own path out of the way just to draw some cards. And it's perhaps just a way of being once more respectful, Chip, right? Just saying, my opponent's probably going to get rid of this path anyway. There's no way it's going to just stick around for 2 turns and keep Zander under control. But here comes Mew VMAX into the active. And the turn is not over yet. We still got a Cram-O-Matic being considered.
Yeah, considering it also has Pal Pad, he could potentially put a couple supporters back. Looks like that will be the choice. Both judges going back into the deck.
Judge going back in the deck. A lot more shuffling, a lot more disruption. Can't rely on your hand for too long. And as long as you can combine the judge with, Path to the Peak so your opponent can't draw out of it with Genesect, it's still pretty decent disruption.
And now Cram-O-Matic will be played, and it does hit a Tails here.
Just a Tails. And we are down to 3 cards in hand, and there is the KO on the Mew V. 2 prizes go over to Grant Hayes, and now Zander.
Oh, top decks the Lost Vacuum. He was 1 card away last turn from being able to get rid of that path and maybe try to do something.
Grant sensed it. He's like, my opponent's going to top deck away to get rid of this path. I'm just going to get rid of it
totally
now,
what it was,
get my Fusion Strike systems down. That way my opponent can't knock it out of the way, use their Fusion Strike systems, and then path and send it back over to me. Zander has 2 path in hand, so this is going to be a beautiful pop-off turn regardless. Now that the path is not there, we get a lot of potential card draw with Genesect V, and then path to finish off this turn before a return knockout.
So this game is tied up on prize cards, but Zander definitely still has the initiative here. He's the one who's at the current turn while the game is tied. So if he's able to find a 2-prize KO this turn, and then on the last turn find another 2-prize KO, he'll win the game before Grant can really do anything else.
And so Ultra Ball is going to get rid of the Battle VIP pass and path to the peak. There is still another one in the hand, of course, so this is a pretty easy discard. Finds Mew VMAX off of the Ultra Ball, so now Zander is going to get right back up and running for this turn. There is no more access to the Forest Sealstone, of course. The escape rope was used much earlier, and after a judge, the cross switcher is going to be pretty hard to find here. Draws 2 cards, discards with the quick ball just to thin down. We've got 1 more Fusion Strike system for Zander to maybe draw into some potential outs.
And as this game continues, we are having less and less time on the clock. 7 minutes now remaining in this one.
Finds a switch card and Cram-O-Matic. Gonna roll the die here. I don't see it off screen.
Yeah.
It's heads.
That's huge, and now he can find Boss's orders potentially, and that is what he's gonna grab. This will bring up a Mew V or a Genesect in order to take a 2-prize KO. Of course, this active VMAX does have that choice belt, so even though Oricorio is in play, he is dealing enough damage.
Yep, and there's the path to the peak. And do we still have to retreat this this Mew VMAX?
No, because
like
remember, he passed last turn.
That's right. It was the Mew V got knocked out. This was just promoted
Grant
after the
passed
fact
as well. So yeah, that Mew VMAX has been to the bench, meaning any sort of effects, and it was also 2 turns ago. So yeah, it's
these Mew turns have to run together on you, Chip.
They do. They do. They definitely do. Yeah, both of these decks taking such long turns. I mean, if we count the number of turns total between these 2 games, it's got to be at like 4. Like total number of turns between 2 games, it's got to be like between 8 and 10 so far. And we've been through 45 minutes so far with a 50-minute round, right?
Yeah, and it's not just the sequence of the physical act of drawing these cards and playing it. It's planning all of your turns and sequences as you're drawing these cards and have to think about each individual thing every step of the way. Power Tablet being used here just to empty some cards out of the hand. Grant Hayes with 2 Genesects now in play, and 5 Fusion Strike Pokemon in play. Double Turbo attachment into the Rock Sand.
Yep, and this is a spot where Grant is going to try to use Zander's own path against him. And I honestly kind of wondered when Zander put that path down if he needed to, right? If things go according to plan, he will win the game next turn. He's got Double Turbo Energy on the Mew. He just needs a boss and a damage modifier to get around that Oricorio. If he can find those things, he just wins the game. So why put Path to the Peak in play? You're limiting your own options. You don't care if Grant can draw 1,000,000 cards if you just win the game next turn.
And now this is still with the Genesect. And maybe Zander is going for some kind of clever gambit where I play the path because I want Grant to bump it again. We saw how Grant used the Lost Vacuum to get rid of his own path to the peak just to draw some cards. If Grant is feeling a lot of pressure from this position, might be forced to get rid of the path to draw into an out. But the Rock Sand covers that option beautifully. And Zander's got the Power Tablet in hand, has the Lost City to bump, uses the Power Tablet.
Yeah, all he needs here is another cross switcher as he has one in hand, or a boss's orders. Any of those 2 pieces, and he will win this one. Doesn't have it yet, but Cram could get him there.
Cram-O-Matic, he's eyeballing it here, discards the Lost Vacuum. Going to roll the dice here to try to find the cross switcher. Tails.
Oh, that is a tails. He can't quite get there just yet. Once again, now off of 2 cards, needing either cross switcher or boss, and he does not find it.
Has the Ultra Ball to thin away the Lost City and that useless battle VIP pass. Grabs the Genesect V. We've got a few more draws still to be had here, Chip. Where is the second cross switcher?
That's all Zander needs to close it out. All he would have to do is retreat his Mew, play cross switcher, and that is the game. For Sealstone V-Star, the Star Alchemy has already been used, and there is the second cross switcher. Oh no, but Zander here, Okay, we're scooping it up here. Zander didn't retreat his Mew before he played the cross switchers, but it looks like Grant is just like, yeah, you've got it. We scoop it up and we're going to the next one. Yeah, with the double cross switcher play, Zander does actually have to switch into something else, but regardless here, with 6 minutes left, we're going to game 3.
All right, so after finding that cross switcher, digging through the
3
deck.
3 minutes left.
3 minutes left on the clock. I think that this is a scenario that everybody is very familiar with, but we haven't quite seen in a very long time. Despite how different these two Mew lists are, they're still approaching the matchup in a very similar way, and with so much card draw, so much micro decision, so much sequencing, the clock has just been completely devoured, and this one is going to a tie, Chip.
Yeah, most likely. I think if this game doesn't end in a tie, it's because someone gets really unlucky.
Yeah,
so.
somebody's going to open with Oricorio in the active, and then draw into nothing playable, and
well,
then
there's a bunch of basics in the prizes there for Grant and a couple VIP passes. There's a chance he doesn't find too much. And yeah, as the prizes or the Pokemon are being flipped over,
Aerodactyl being started in the active here.
Not your go-to starter in this matchup without a doubt. Zander does start the Oricorio, which is what you want in the active spot as the Mew player whenever you're going second anyway. So, you know, he doesn't even have to worry about finding it. He's just already starting it.
Battle VIP pass as well for Grant Hayes. Even though Aerodactyl's an awkward starter Pokemon, as long as you get the Genesect V, it's going to be okay. Mew V also comes through. Very notable that there is no fighting energy in this deck. We aren't going to be seeing any cheeky double turbos attached to the Aerodactyl to try to get some swings in.
Yeah, not this game. It will
only to retreat, of course.
Will just be a pass. Now Zander here with I think a Quick Ball and Ultra Ball in hand, has some options, but what resources is he okay losing is the question. Lost City can go, it looks like. There's Cross Switcher, Escape Rope, Lost Vacuum, and Double Turbo is the remaining
These are
cards.
all such key cards that we've seen in Game 1 and Game 2 to help fight in this matchup. Gets rid of the Lost City and the Escape Rope after some consideration.
Yep, and brings Mew to the front of the deck right away. Time is ticking down. There is a chance that this is turn 0, potentially, if Zander does not end his turn before this timer expires.
And so with turn 0, turn 1, thanks to the Ultra Ball, Zander is going to have a Pokemon on the bench. There's no chance of Grant just getting an early attack and just, you know, knocking out this Oricorio with Zander having no Pokemon left to promote and losing instantly.
Yeah. But
Mew V does enter play, and there's Quick Ball. Has to discard 1 Cross Switcher. There are 4 in the deck, so that's a little bit of an easier choice. Genesect V also hitting the bench. 3 Fusion Strike Pokemon in play now. A lot of thinning already happened with the hand. There's the attach of the Double Turbo now. You can draw 2 more cards.
Yeah, and VIP pass being one of the grabs is really strong.
And
that's
benching
let him
the
go back
Genesect
in.
V, beautiful.
Yep, and this will fill that bench up. We'll see a couple more Fusion Strike systems, and that definitely tells me this is going to be
turn zero, baby.
Yeah, there's no shot that Zander's turn is going to be over in the next 22 seconds.
Yeah, a lot of cards to be drawn, a lot of lines to be considered from this point. Draws all the way back up to 6 cards in hand, finds the Forest Seal Stone. That's an easy attachment to thin down even further.
Yeah, can still keep drawing a little bit more if he wants to, and he even has Judge there in the hand.
Yep, and goes for it. This is going to shuffle those cards back into the deck. You get to draw up to 4 after you shuffle, and then you can just get 2 more cards, potentially with the Genesect V, or a little bit more that you can play and thin down. Fail an Ultra Ball, fail a Quick Ball, why not? Maybe find a Cramomatic. Still so many options open and available for Zander, just off of the 4 cards off this Judge.
Yeah, and they're going to keep playing out here. It looks like time should have been called, so Zander should be turn 0, meaning Grant will be turn 1, Zander will be turn 2, and Grant will be turn 3.
If there's anything that Pokemon card players like more, it's just drawing cards, right? You like to draw cards, even if it's going to go to a tie. You're still going to play to your sequences. You're going to put those reps in, really drill it into your muscle memory. And overall, these first 2 games were spectacular. Really came down to the wire. We can see how even this is, even with such different builds. Power Tablet also entering the scene to open up some space in the hand to draw even more. I see a Cramomatic on the bottom, Chip. Going to discard. Oh no, just going to hold off now finally. Play Path to the Peak instead, and now it's over to Grant. Aerodactyl can retreat thanks to the attachment of the Double Turbo Energy. Grant knows that he's turn 1. And there's Cramomatic discarding a power tablet.
Yeah, and that is huge. Because of that path to the peak, Grant can't really do much, and Ultra Ball can get the Aerodactyl V-Star. I think we're going to see that Ancient Star V-Star power.
Ancient Star.
I was kind of
Unbelievable.
surprised when Zander played Power Tablet last turn. Your opponent's got Aerodactyl V and an energy on it in the active spot. If they just go for Ancient Star and you don't have the immediate response, you're going to be in a tough spot. And 260 HP on the Aerodactyl, you do need quite a few damage modifiers to get there.
And what is nice about Ancient Star is that it is a V-Star power attack, so we can just use it here under the influence of Path to the Peak.
Yep.
And so Cram-O-Matic is going to come out for Zander. Gets the heads after discarding the Echoing Horn.
Yeah, he could knock out this Aerodactyl here. He would need 3 damage modifiers and a switch, and already switch cart is there in the hand. Now, even though Aerodactyl V-Star does turn off the abilities of all rule box Pokemon, Pokemon V in play, I should say. Zander can actually still use the Forest Seal Stone. It's the similar ruling as what we see with Path to the Peak, right? Where you can still use Forest Seal Stone under Path to the Peak. The same thing works.
So still one more card to be had. Mew VMAX with the double turbo energy. And the players are kind of seeing that, you know, after all is said and done, this is going to be a tie. Both players 5-1-1 currently, have one more round of Swiss to make absolutely sure they get locked in for day 2.
Yep, absolutely. Got to feel like Zander probably would have won that one. Grant just did not have much going on, was just top decking, hoping for a way to get out of the Path to the Peak. And Zander wisely, I think, set up the 50 damage, and then next turn was going to go for the knockout onto that Aerodactyl. But as it stands, looks like it is going to be a tie. Both of these players not eliminated, but will need a win in round number 9 if they want to participate in day 2 of the tournament.
Yeah, when it comes down to the wire, when you're on round 9 and that's the round you absolutely need to win, the pressure is going to be immense. And after playing this mirror match all the way to time without a resolution, the players might be a bit dissatisfied, but that's also a lot of mental energy that's been expended, Chip, to go into piloting against that mirror match. So when they go into round 9, they're gonna have to really, really dig deep to make sure they keep their plays clean, keep their mental strong, and lock in that day 2.
And you feel the pressure too, because you know if you don't win this round, your tournament run is over. There's no chance of you making day 2, no chance of you making top 8, no chance of you finishing with any champion or with any prize money. You probably still could come away with some championship points, getting top 256 maybe, but honestly, with how massive